Welcome back. Today we're talking about something many people feel but rarely admit out loud: loneliness. You can be in a crowded house, on a busy train, or scrolling through thousands of faces and still feel utterly alone. To help us unpack what loneliness does to the mind and how we can begin to heal it, I'm joined again by Emeritus Professor and Senior Consultant Psychiatrist Professor Raveen Handalle.
Yeah, thank you, Radhika. So this is a topic that sits very close to mental health. So we tend to talk about depression, anxiety, trauma, but loneliness often sits silently behind all of them and shaping how people see themselves and what they believe they deserve.
When you use the word loneliness in a clinical or human sense, what do you mean?
Yeah, loneliness doesn't mean simply being alone. So you can be alone and deeply content, and that's what we call solitude. Solitude is chosen and it can be very peaceful, creative, or even spiritual. Loneliness, on the other hand, is a painful feeling that your need for connection is not met. So you are kind of maybe surrounded by people, but still feel unseen, unheard, unimportant. A lonely person often carries a quiet belief that if I disappear, no one will really notice. And that belief can be quite devastating.
So it's much more about the quality of relationships than the number of contacts.
Yeah, you can have hundreds of social media followers and, well, thousands maybe, and still have no one you feel safe calling when you are scared or sad. So that gap between exposure and genuine connection is where loneliness grows.
We sometimes think of loneliness as a soft problem, a social issue rather than a medical one. How does it affect mental health and the body?
Yeah, well, actually, it's quite surprisingly deep. Loneliness activates the same stress systems that we talked about earlier. So the body interprets isolation as danger because for most of human history, if you are cut out from the group, you were more or less dead, really. So chronically lonely people have higher levels of stress. Their sleep is fragmented. They experience more physical pain. Their risk of depression and anxiety is increased. And we also know there's a significant association between persistent loneliness and poor physical health outcomes, like heart rates, high rates of cardiovascular disease or even heart attacks. On the psychological side, loneliness changes the stories people kind of tell themselves. It can lead to thoughts like, I'm not interesting enough, everyone else has their life together, I'm the odd one out. And over time, these thoughts can become part of a person's identity.
We live in a world where it's possible to connect with almost anyone at any time. Why then do so many people report feeling lonelier than ever?
Things have changed. So many communities have become fragmented. Families are now geographically scattered. People move for work and often leave behind long term relationships. Well, digital communication is there, but it's a double edged sword. It can make it easier to stay in touch, but the contacts become thinner. So short messages and likes can't fully replace a sustained face to face conversation where you can hear the tone, see the facial expressions, and feel presence. On top of that, social media creates a constant window into other people's highlight reels. And when you feel lonely and you open your phone to see images of people, laughing, couples on holidays, friends at parties, it can actually intensify your sense of being left out, uh, even if those images are kind of curated and incomplete.
You mentioned how loneliness affects self story. What are some of the common lies that loneliness tells people?
Yeah, loneliness often says you are the only one who feels this way. If you are more interesting, more attractive, you won't be alone. It convinces people that their loneliness is proof of their inadequacy. It also makes people feel like a burden. They think, I don't want to bother anyone. If I reach out, I'll be annoying people. So they wait for others to initiate contact. And when others don't, the belief becomes confirmed. So it's a kind of a painful self confirming loop.
So, loneliness can make someone withdraw even more, which then deepens the loneliness.
Yeah, exactly. The instinct is to kind of protect yourself from rejection by not reaching out. but that very protection maintains the isolation.
Let's talk about what people can actually do. If someone listening recognizes themselves in what you're saying, where can they begin?
Yeah, I'll encourage them to start with something small. So you don't have to transform your entire social life overnight. So one step might be to increase what we call micro connections. So that could be just making contact and saying hello to the person in the shop, or chatting briefly with a colleague about something other than work. Calling a friend or family member for just a few minutes just to check in. This may seem minor, but they send an important signal to the brain saying I exist in a web of human contact. And the next step might be to add some structure. We bond around repeated activities. So joining a class, exercise group, choir, book club, whatever. Volunteering for organization, gives you a shared purpose, and repeated exposure kind of to the same faces. You may not connect with everyone, but over time, small conversations can grow into something bigger. People often underestimate how much others welcome connections, because most of us are more lonely than we let on.
Some people are very anxious socially, or they've had painful experiences of rejection. How can they move towards connection without feeling overwhelmed?
Yeah, it kind of helps to think in terms of tolerable challenges rather than taking a huge giant leap. If talking in a big group terrifies you, don't start from there. So begin with one-to-one small interactions in safer settings. Also, maybe prepare a few simple questions or topics that you can bring into a conversation, like asking someone how their week is going, what music they are listening to, what they do outside of work. And these are small openings. You don't need to be dazzling. You just need to be present.
One problem we've seen is technology, but we know that technology isn't going away. Are there ways to use it genuinely to help loneliness rather than make it worse?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, video calls with distant family, online support groups, interest based communities, all of these can be very helpful, especially for people who are struggling to leave the house or live in remote areas. So the difference lies in how you use it. Just passive scrolling, comparing, lurking can increase loneliness, but active connections. So sending a voice note, having a real-time conversation, joining a group where you can participate, not just watch, can reduce it. So I suggest that people do a small audit of their online activity. So after you use a platform, notice how you feel. Are you more connected or are you more empty? So that emotional feedback can guide you to a more healthy pattern.
Prof. Raveen, when does loneliness become something that might actually require professional support?
Yeah. So again, if loneliness is kind of accompanied by what we discussed earlier, under depression, persistent low mood, loss of interest in things you normally enjoy, significant anxiety around all social situations, or thoughts that life isn't worth living, then it's important to reach out to a professional. Therapy can help people unpack beliefs they have formed about themselves from early experiences. But this can be gently challenged and replaced with more accurate views. So sometimes treating underlying depression or social anxiety makes it much easier for people to seek and sustain their connections.
For someone listening to this episode who feels lonely, what would you like to say to them directly?
Well, I would say that the fact that you feel lonely is not proof that you are unlovable. It just proves that you are a human being. Your brain and heart are wired for connections, and they are signaling, telling you that their needs are not being met. You're not the only one who feels this way, even if it looks as if everyone else is, wonderfully connected. Many of the happiest looking people on our screens, especially the film stars, or they are struggling too, and reach out in small ways, answer a message instead of just waiting. Say yes to invitation for tea or coffee, join a group that aligns with something you care about. And if the weight of loneliness is too heavy, then okay, talk to a professional. You don't have to do it alone. Your presence in the world matters more than you can see from inside your mind.
Thank you, Prof. Raveen. And to everyone who's listening, if this conversation resonated with you, consider sharing it with someone who also might be quietly struggling. Sometimes that simple act is the start of a new connection.
Yeah, thank you.